Thank you so much for clicking on this video. Welcome aboard. I'm gonna do my best to break down a sophisticated story. I hope it won't be boring. I'm gonna try to make it as interesting as possible. So let's get straight into it. So there's a way of life among the Asmat people of New Guinea that hasn't changed since the Stone Age. It caught the interest of Michael Rockefeller, a restless young man in 1961. Some may ask, who is this Rockefeller? Because the Rockefeller should, ring a bell. So the Rockefeller fortune began with the oil tycoon John D. Rockefeller, America's first billionaire, who founded Standard Oil in 1870. So yeah, people claim the Rockefellers as among the elites, among the 1% of the people who supposedly control the world and whatnot, who own a lot of the banks and so on and so on. So it's pretty interesting, right? So for the prehistoric Asmat tribes, magic, ghosts, and spirits interacted constantly. Tribal warfare is normal and expected. Retaliation for death is required. So among the Asmat people, or just among the tribes of Papua New Guinea, when someone dies, it's war on site. So that's just one thing they kept on emphasizing in the documentary. So Michael traveled among these fierce native men in order to research and learn. He vanished in their midst and was never ever seen again. The son of the Rockefeller, imagine, a son of the elites, is what you can say. And Michael was deeply enthralled with the culture of the Asmat, which inspired him to document their way of life. The Asmat was an adventure beyond his wildest dreams. It was just something that he was in love with. He was fascinated by the landscape, the culture, and all that good stuff. Who would have ever known that he would have returned back home? So it was a very special occasion when the governor and Mrs. Nelson Rockefeller visited Harvard University in June 1964. So Michael, their youngest son, received honors at graduation. And ahead of him lay a life full of great potential and promise and all that good stuff. Imagine being a son of such a rich family, you could do so much. And of the governor's 3 sons and 2 daughters, he was the most adventurous, and he was always the most, they call him he was silly, he just loved people, he loved travel, he was just one of those, And being one of those is not bad, I don't mean to say he's bad, but he was just one of those kids who who loved adventure. And in just 6 months, he was in the isolated highlands of Dutch New Guinea, halfway around the world. He had enrolled in an anthropological research project to document and examine the Dani Stone Age tribe. So sensitive and passionate, he enjoyed his work so much. He worked as the expedition soundman and still photographer for 6 months. And after his work was done, he was drawn to the Asmat people in a different region of New Guinea. So this is where, it gets a little interesting. The ancient Asmat people of southern New Guinea lived as they had since prehistoric times along the coast, right? So they've been, living in the same areas for I don't know how many years, but I think thousands, you can say. Who knows? Because they say that these people were they are traced to the beginning of humankind or something like that, the documentary, but who knows? But that's what they say. So it's very ancient tribes that are still alive today, are still in their ancient way of living and traditional way of living. Michael explored the area enthralled with the people's customs and way of life. In his journal he wrote, "The Asmat is equal to my wildest dreams. It is a land of great winding rivers, jungle, and mud, literally nothing else. And pretty much the only food that people have had for centuries has been fish and the pulp of sago palm. A few isolated places still practice headhunting. I think headhunting was it's not only just hunting for food, but hunting for sport, cutting off the heads of exotic animals and showing off and stuff like that. And as an observer and skilled photographer, he just pretty much recorded the Asmat way of life. Wherever they went, he went, just looking at the way they lived and recording it all on film. And imagine during that time, these tribes were probably looking at the camera what the heck is that, right? It's so crazy to think about just being such a ancient tribe and just having people come and just have a camera right in your face and like just recording you and stuff like that. That's pretty interesting to me. Like, I don't know how I would react. The word Asmat means tree people. And in fact, the majority of the materials used in their culture, including the food, the shelter, the canoes, and artwork, all come from these trees. The Asmat even thought that they were descendants of trees. So I find that really crazy. Like, just think about your ancient, tribesmen in the Asmat, village, and you look at a tree, the mangrove trees, like these gigantic trees, and you're like, wow, that's where I came from. I just find it interesting. Like, I'm not bashing like their way of life, but it's crazy when you put yourself in their shoes. It's unbelievable. And according to the mythology, a great magician once roamed their barren land and carved human figures out of mangrove wood because he was lonely. So that's what the documentary said. That's how their whole existence supposedly came to being, was that a great magician was in their land and he got lonely and he cut down a big mangrove tree and carved human beings and then knocked on it. So it says with a gentle drum beat, he brought the figure to life, giving rise to the Asmat people. So that's really cool to put that in there. And the Asmat still think that trees are where their spirits live and where their ancestors live and stuff like that. An age-old custom combining violence and art is initiated by cutting down a mangrove tree. It was really interesting. So while they're cutting down the mangrove tree, like while they're like transporting it, the Asmat women would like throw mud at the mangrove trunk before allowing it to enter the village, like pretty much cleansing it of any like remaining evil spirits. And the elaborate carvings start after the mangrove has been cleansed of demons. A carving that takes the form of the heads of deceased kings and ancestors serve as a crucial conduit between the material and spiritual realms. And there is no such thing as natural death in Asmat. The only things that explains life's passing are evil spirits and enemies. So let me talk about that a little bit more. So they believe that they're supposed to live forever. And if any one of their people die, it's not due to natural causes, it's due to an omen or an enemy. So pretty much it's gonna be war. If someone dies, they're trying to find who's responsible for the death. So that's pretty crazy. And moving on. And when the carving is complete, it serves as a promise to their deceased ones that they will like exact their revenge, that they will go and find the people responsible for their death and stuff like that. And Michael was like utterly like enthralled with the beauty of like their beliefs and their art and how they, just use a tree to make all these beautiful things. So like in the journal, he says that the wood carvings and the sculpture which the people here produce is some of the most extraordinary work in the primitive world. So again, he like it explains his fascination for the Asmat people. And he got so excited that he started collecting the Asmat art. But to me, that kind of just pulled a red flag in my mind.
Sure is a red flag, I agree.
Although the documentary didn't talk about that, he was collecting their art. He was like, trying to, these things that they were making, he wanted it for himself. Like, imagine you have all the money in the world, your parents are like billionaires, they have oil companies, banking systems and whatnot, and you're trying to take art from people who don't have anything but that. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, just found that interesting. He noted the minute details of everyday life as he traveled from village to village, writing that the rowers placed little effort behind their strokes, allowing the outflowing tide to carry the prows easily along. So the prows, by the way, I think is just a boat. And Michael like spent weeks traveling through like the Asmat region, frequently with anthropologists and like other missionaries and stuff like that. So also want to include, like, imagine you are a tribesman of the Papua New Guinea, population, and you're just seeing people on their boats like from America and stuff with their clothes and their materialistic possessions and stuff like that, and just imagine how that would make you feel, So Michael gradually started to gather a sizable collection of carvings, and he had an idea for an exhibition honoring Asmat's extraordinary inventiveness. So he said he wanted to collect all this art to open exhibition, for these Asmat people, which I, find kind of cool. It's sincere, but again, you're collecting their art. You're collecting things that are sacred to them. Michael set out on a native catamaran. Catamaran is like a boat for a village up the coast on November 8, 1961. 2 indigenous guides and Dutch anthropologist René Wysing accompanied him, picking up carvings that Michael had already, like, pretty much bargained for. Like, they're gonna go drive to this village to go pick up some art that these tribesmen, you know, created with their blood, sweat, and tears and all that stuff, you know? And there was just one outboard motor powering the improvised catamaran, and he had been alerted to, like, the potential hazards and the erratic currents along the islands. So yeah, pretty much what happened was, yeah, a big surge at the mouth of the island, like, suddenly struck the motor and, like, flipped the whole boat over. And, like, while Michael remained on the boat, like, hopelessly adrift, him and Renee, the 2 natives, decided to, you know, to swim out to go find help. So they swam, and Michael and Renee just stayed at the boat. So, and then what happened was that Michael didn't believe that the natives were gonna make it, you know? So I think after hours, I don't know, maybe even after a day, he opted to go out alone to go find help. And pretty much Renee was kind of like, didn't want that, but, you know, Michael pretty much convinced him, and he swam, like, for land using 2 gas canisters that he tied upon his waist to float. And then, unbeknownst to him and Renee, that, like, the guides that swam out did find help. They made it to land. And even though the nearest village was only 11 miles away, the journey for assistance took almost a day due to the dense jungle and deep mud of the Asmat coast. So the moment Dutch authorities learned of the situation, a thorough search was initiated. And searchers covered vast stretches of densely forested shoreline as well as the coastal rivers in their search for Michael. And, like, pretty much when they're in the plain below them was just, like, hostile and, like, just barren lands. Like, you know, imagine how hot it is. And so pretty much Michael's not gonna survive. Like, if he would have made it, you know, if he would have made it to shore and can't find anyone, like, the land is very dangerous, pretty much. Also, to include how there were a lot of crocodiles in that area along the coast that Michael pretty much had to swim to. So if he did make it to shore, he also had to survive the crocodiles and stuff. And also, like, past that are mangroves and spongy tangles of sago palms teeming with poisonous snakes, scorpions, and a swarm of mosquitoes. So also to include that their home was dubbed the land of lapping death. So that's what the Asmat called their home, or their land. They called it the land of lapping death. I would definitely not take a trip somewhere there. Like, if someone says, hey, you want to take a trip here? And I'm like, what does that stand for? And they say, the land of lapping death? I ain't doing it. So, moving on. So Renee was miraculously discovered by a flying boat more than 20 miles out to sea, still clinging on to the overturned catamaran. And he explained what had happened to the reporter, like, stunned and worn out. He attempted to talk to Michael, like, pretty much trying to convince him from not going. That's what he told the reporter. And he told the reporter and them that Michael just didn't want to stay, and that Michael said, I think I can make it, which were his final words to Renee. So that's crazy. And the search for Michael is, like, still ongoing at this point. It took 3 days for the governor, Rockefeller, to receive word that his son was missing. So imagine him, this rich guy, like, finds out his son is missing in a crazy area, right? Not crazy, but you know what I mean, like an area that you don't want to be lost at, you know? So taken back and stunned, he did his best to fill the barrage of, like, questions that he was getting from everyone. And the news out of New Guinea was also not good. So Michael's remains, like, had not been discovered, and the spectacle was amazing and overwhelming for the, like, local Asmat people. So, like, yeah, imagine you're the Asmat people just walking around hunting. You just see thousands of Americans, people from all over the world coming, looking for one person in your land. So, yeah, it was never seen. They said, the Asmat people said it was never, they never seen anything comparable to that. So, moving on. A sad and dejected father had nearly given up hope after spending several more days searching in vain. Subsequently, the initial hint, the red gas can was found, the one that he used to, like, stay afloat. So it was compelling evidence that he drowned, but also gave them a cause for, like, optimism too. So yeah, he could have drowned, but also he could have made it to sea. I mean, he could have made it to shore. So yeah, they were not trying to lose hope right away. And 5,000 indigenous people started searching the coast for signs of Michael, and there was nothing discovered. And the search was, like, over after almost 2 weeks of searching. a distraught father like knew his son was dead when he got home. Like, so yeah, he pretty much, Rockefeller, the governor Rockefeller, when he went home, he just believed that Michael drowned at sea. And however, it didn't take long for rumors to spread that Michael might still be alive somewhere in the jungle. So 7 years after Michael vanished in 1968 in New York City, a man was inspired to start his own personal hunt for Michael. So writer and magazine editor Milt Macklin was visited in his office by an unidentified man going by the name Donahue. And Donahue informed him about his encounter with Michael on the island of Papua New Guinea, like somewhere over there. So Macklin was like captivated by the tale and decided to go visit New Guinea because he knew if this was true and he finds Michael, he's gonna like hit it big. But despite having little information from Donahue, Macklin chose to take the risky path anyway. He's like, whatever, I'll still go and look for him even though he didn't give me much information. According to Donahue's account, Michael was picked up by a war party and transported by canoe on the 1,000-mile voyage to the Trobriand Islands. So that's pretty, yeah, if that's true, that's pretty scary. Imagine you getting picked up by some tribesmen. Yeah. As Macklin navigated the jungle, he started to comprehend Michael's fascination with its untamed beauty. So he saw why, Michael loved this area because it's such a beautiful land, And when Macklin arrived at a significant village in the Trobriand after several days of travel, the local chief was aware of Cannibal Island. So Cannibal Island was pretty much the island that Donahue said that he talked to Michael. And this chief said that he can give him information about this island. But by native standards, the journey was lengthy, like very lengthy. But at last, Macklin's destinations appeared to be within reach. So Macklin, all he cared about was finding Michael and, getting that bag, like imagine how much money you would be receiving by one of the Rockefellers, So Macklin set out for Kinapu in a hired boat. And they pretty much found the island. It was so small. And yeah, he was happy he found it. So following the difficult and lengthy voyage, Macklin arrived at the destination with like cheerful excitement. The island was like a tropical haven. It was so beautiful, they said, a true paradise. And there were like a few indications of life, however, and the location was strange, they said. So the only thing they found was like abandoned shelter. The cabin was deserted. There was no sign of Michael, and Macklin was pretty much upset. He was disheartened and disappointed that Michael wasn't there. So Macklin was upset. Like he pretty much gave up, his search. Even though Michael's whereabouts remained unknown, Macklin had numerous concerns about the fruitless search. Like he was just wondering if Donahue's story was true or if it was some cruel hoax. So he pretty much like spent 2 more months traveling through New Guinea in search of proof of Michael's whereabouts. And he found something from a Dutch missionary whose name was Father Cornelius van Kessel. And according to rumors that Van Kessel had heard, Michael was killed close to the Asmat village of Otsjanep. And rumors suggested that a war chief by the name of Ajam was the one in charge. And the chief was pretty much interviewed. In this interview, he was talking about how he saw many airplanes and boats and that he was afraid. And he was talking about how they were afraid and they started blocking the rivers with trees. So like, people wouldn't come, and hurt them and stuff like that. And he also said that the enemies in other villages were the ones saying that him and his village was the one responsible for killing Michael just because they want to get them in trouble. But he says that it's not true. And that, if him and his tribe was responsible, he would have known of it, So, yeah. So poor guy, imagine just being interviewed by America and you have no weapons and these guys have weapons of mass destruction. So it's possible that the whole truth about Michael Rockefeller's disappearance will never be revealed. If the solution lies with the Asmat, an almost impenetrable cultural curtain stands in the way of a definitive resolution. But within their daily lives, the ancient rites that once preceded triple violence are still evident. So pretty much this statement pretty much talks about how it's going to be hard to find the truth because these people, they're like, you can't get through them. They're like, they have principles and codes of conduct and customs, and if they did do something, they're not going to reveal it because they don't want their tribe to be wiped out. So they were also talking about how their culture also has a lot of seeds of violence. So this is a very interesting clash. So here I'm going to show you guys just a little ceremony that they also do, that they supposedly say has a lot of violence in it. So this here is like an intricate ceremony in remembrance of their deceased ones, like ancestors and stuff like that. Like you can also see like there's like those mangrove poles that they carve. The ceremony would have prompted a retaliatory attack on a rival tribe just a generation ago. So they're saying that this ceremony that you're seeing a generation ago, before this video was made, this pretty much means it was wartime. Like after this ceremony would be done, there would be some killing going on. But they said, however, like this way of life was like ended. Like they don't do that anymore. Also in Michael's journal, he writes that the Asmat is filled with a kind of tragedy. They were a ferocious headhunting people, but now many villages are beginning to doubt the worth of their own culture. They crave things Western, even though these doubtful symbols of another world hide a proud form and replace a far finer of if less concealing form of dress. So it's a really interesting statement, because our countries, right, then you go back, like if you're like from a country other than America, a lot of times our people want to come to America. They always think that America, it's better. It is nice to be here in America, but when you look at like ancient tribes and you see that the way they're living, it's so beautiful, but they want to live a Western life, but they don't know that the way they are living, it's more meaningful, it's more symbolic. So yeah, I just found that interesting how Michael brought that in there. And perhaps Michael's dedication to the Asmat was a part of a larger personal quest for self-understanding and universal values, which could guide him through life. So yeah, they were saying that all this Michael was doing was to help him in his life and stuff like that. But who knows the true intentions, but it's really interesting. So yeah, so Michael again was never found. And yeah, no matter how much they interviewed the Asmat people, they couldn't find any trace of Michael. Eventually, someone from the village told one of, the people who were looking for Michael what happened. But they promised the guy not to tell anyone, supposedly. But of course, he's gonna tell, right? So what happened was, when Michael went to go swim, he did find some Asmat people on these boats. And on these boats, there was they said it was about 30 to 40 of them. And they brought him upon the board. They brought him upon the canoe. And as soon as they looked at him, Michael was kind of happy and stuff like that. They said they literally stabbed him with a spear, right in his chest. And Michael jumped and got scared and stuff. Imagine and he tried to jump out of the boat. And as he jumped out the boat, they all circled around him. And they're pretty much supposedly stabbing him. They got him back onto the boat. And they took him back to the village and they disposed of him. They literally ate him, and they said they used every part of him. They didn't want anything left or anything found. So not his nails, I'm sorry, but his teeth were used, his skull was used. Every part of him was either eaten or used for something. So nothing could be found. And I just find that really crazy, because we are talking about a son that belongs to a family that is considered the elites, who have billions and billions and billions of dollars, if not trillions, who knows. But the reason why I bring this up in this podcast is to show you how interesting we could be born into the richest family, right? And we still want more, right? We want to go to a village or a population of people who don't have anything, yet you still want to take from them, So the reason why I'm saying that is because they didn't like him. They didn't like how he came to their villages and how he just recorded everything and how he wanted to take stuff. They did not like that. And that was brought up in a very famous guy whose name is Mr. Ballin. He's the one that pretty much broke down the video of how he was killed, because it took years for them to find out how he was killed. And yeah, that's how I found out how Michael was killed, because this documentary that I'm pretty much doing this didn't talk about how he was killed. But yeah, just recently I just saw that video and it's proven that he was killed. It was like word to mouth. People in the village confessed, and yeah, so they ate Michael Rockefeller. That's crazy. So thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I hope you guys like content like this. And if you do, please hit a like and subscribe, and I hope my next video is going to be more interesting. So have a beautiful one. Have a beautiful night, day, wherever you are. And most importantly, for the people who've been watching my videos since day one, I just want to say thank you so much. It really does mean a lot to me. And I hope to build a family or a community, and I just hope to do way more. But farewell. Thank you guys again.